Lloyd Wright is that he was quite old when he was building a lot of his most famous buildings. He spent 50 years of his life living and working in Chicago in a style of architecture that became known as the PRAIRIE School. 50 years of his life on this, and he started to get bored. In 1914, the Debs House, constructed in Kalamazoo, Michigan, on the banks of the Kalamazoo River. It's a building in the shape of a triangle, its hypotenuse extending just above the water line. But Wright doesn't factor in the fact that the river floods, and so after the first big rain, the whole house falls into the current and floats towards the factory downstream. Wright declares it his last prairie house and says a wonderful thing about a prairie is that sometimes it catches fire. I want it all, 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 I want it all for me, yeah. It's at the corner of Woodlawn and 58th, built from 1908 to 1909, and widely considered a masterpiece of the prairie style. It unfolds along a single axis, stepping downward and outward from the massive central core of the chimney in a complex series of overlapping horizontal planes. It's a building that is saturated with the idea of horizon. It's built wide and long, and even the mortar used to put the bricks together is darker on the longer side of the brick. Not a wall, but parallel lines. Not lines, but stranger than that. The interior, one continuous room, all rooms the same room, all speak together. A fireplace at the center, permitting an uninterrupted flow of space along a length of French doors, which, depending on the location of the observer, become either part of the living room or the dining room. The ceiling passes through the upper part of the chimney and continues into the adjoining room. All rooms the same room, all speak together. Wooden strips attached to the ceiling echo the shapes of doors and windows. A ceiling made of doors and windows. Frank was so prescriptive and demanding that all of the furniture inside of the house had to be approved of by him. Forms, materials, patterns, decoration, all designed meticulously. Chairs as tall grass thrones around a table that sinks into the mud. Glass patterns whose long diagonals form kaleidoscopic diamonds in their brief intersections, and the lamps, they look like small roofs. And the roof, the most critical, most Wrightian element of the house.
We both wrote down the homes that belonged to our grandfather's families on the south side of Chicago. And I'm just curious about other things that Ethan's and my grandfather might have in common. Hey, Ethan?
Mm-hmm.
Did your grandfather teach you the concept of a lake bath, which is just swimming? It's swimming and rubbing your armpits.
Claire, did your grandfather enjoy opera?
Yeah, he does. Ethan, after retiring, did your grandfather have you drink every day at 4:30?
Yes. Does your grandfather understand your art?
I think he does, and I think with the amount that he doesn't, he is very generously willing to accept it as what it is. Ethan, to members of your family, is the great blue heron a consistent reminder of his presence?
Yes. Did your grandfather prefer leather to other types of upholstery?
Yeah. Ethan, did your grandfather ever write a 2-page autobiography, then revise it by crossing out the names of his least favorite people?
Did your grandfather have a habit of erupting into song while walking down the street or sitting at the dinner table?
Ethan, does your grandfather take spiritual pride in the green beans from his garden?
Yes, very much. Did your grandfather love Cole Porter and by association the movie De Lovely, even though he usually has pretty scrupulous taste and that movie was really only okay?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
That brought clear water, and the prairie house. 19, a fact. At the geographic midpoint of the contiguous United States is a city, A middle city, a city of flint, a middle city of flint, where all the buildings are flint, and all the cars are flint, and all the people are flint, and the whole thing could catch fire at any moment in the summer. The whole thing could split into 2, 3, 4, 1,000 parts if the sun hits it in the right way. There's no water in the middle city, there's no river, there's no lake, only the flint roads in and out of town. 20, a fact. There's no water in the middle city, but it's coming. It's coming soon. The rain that falls in the middle city hasn't come in 525 years. The rain that falls in the middle city falls everywhere. Migratory patterns of birds. Alone they go so far from home. Migratory patterns of birds. All the way to Argentina. All the way to Argentina. Alone they go so far from Michigan all the way to Argentina. Yeah. You've got a lot of nerve. You've got a lot of nerve. Come here and say you'll treat me this way.
Only want to have some fun. Do whatever you want. Wear lingerie to a restaurant. Police ain't got no gun. You don't have to run. Everybody say ooh, ooh. Alright, alright. Dance, music, sex, romance. Everybody say ooh.
We have told you some things in the show that are factually inaccurate. And in the interest of honesty, the World's Fair opened in March, not February. Frank Lloyd Wright never built the Debs house. The Debs house is entirely fictional. It did not fall into the Kalamazoo River because it did not exist. Frank Lloyd Wright never swore off the prairie style, although he did move to Europe in 1914 and his style did evolve away from the prairie style. I've read a few books about Frank Lloyd Wright's life, but I keep getting bored. I'm not actually interested in elevating him or his work that much. I just want to take his ideas. Someone at a party who just moved here from New York. He says, I just can't stop writing about Kalamazoo. And I ask why. He says, I grew up there.
So I suggest we vote to put up the turbines and take away the hills. That way no one can say they moved here for the view, and if they do say it, it means something different. My suggestion is ignored, and they vote instead to say that every time somebody utters the word town, the rest of your sentence must suddenly progress at a slower rate and feels natural.
I ask, what about Kalamazoo? And he says, I'm transitioning. The Pfizer plant that makes my testosterone is currently polluting the Kalamazoo River. I tell him, I fell in love once with a person from Kalamazoo. And he says, it's easy to do. I tell him I'm working on this piece, and I tell him I'm imagining a building that could be a bird leaning over to drink the water. And he says, the river floods sometimes. And lets you start again. It's painful at first, but it gives you the chance. It's painful, but it's easy to do. Or at least, easier than you think.
I learned to bead. I buy moccasins and given a birch bark flower vase. Driving along an unfamiliar road, he comments that the street signs in every major U.S. city look the same. I return to this place and I wonder, how can you love a place that has no sense of its own history? With my grandmother, I make a bracelet, but I don't want to include the chevron pattern. I don't like how it looks.
Here's a question I have.